Hello students, this is Mr. Zamaripa, and today we're going to go over the organelles of the cell. If you remember, organelles are the organs that are inside the cells, whether it's an animal cell or a plant cell. They all have organs like humans have organs. All right, so let's go ahead and begin with the first organ, and that is going to be organelle. That's going to be the membrane. Now, you can't read this right here, it's kind of small, but I'll read it for you. It says, look for the red outline organelle to show you what the membrane looks like. So the membrane would be this red line that is around this animal cell, and the red line that's around this plant cell. Now, the membrane holds all the organelles. So it's the area that holds all the organelles. It has a function. It can let things in like food. Animal cells need glucose. And it can let things out like waste. It needs to get rid of carbon dioxide for animal cells. For plant cells, they take in carbon dioxide and their waste is oxygen. So the air that you breathe, oxygen that you breathe, is basically plant cell waste. All right, let's take a look at some other pictures of what this organelle might look like. You might see it drawn irregular, like this one right here. By the way, what would that be, animal or plant cell? If you said animal, you are correct. A plant cell would look more boxy, like this one right here. So the membrane on the plant cell is not going to be the outside line, but it's going to be the next line. So you got to have to look really carefully to trace that line. It's going to be the inside line, the one that holds all the organelles. And then you might see some other slides that look like this. Now, an analogy and function for membrane would be a membrane is like a door, because it lets food and waste in and out the house. So when you buy groceries, you bring them in your door, and when you throw out the trash, you got to open the door and let it right back out. All right, well, that's it for membrane. And I'm going to go ahead and continue. And you will have these slides available to you later so that you can label them. So for right now, all I really want you to do is just pay attention. Organelle that we're going to talk about in this page is called cytoplasm. Inside the membrane is all this jelly, all this gel, and I like to refer to it as hand sanitizer sometimes because it's kind of jelly. But another analogy would be kind of like Jello, like this Jello is holding in all the fruit inside the Jello. It would be holding in all the organelles. And the job of cytoplasm is to protect organs, keep them suspended so that they all don't fall down to the bottom and just crash into each other. So it suspends them and it protects the organelles. Both animal cells and plant cells have cytoplasm. And if you were to look at pictures of this structure, it would be all the things that are in the middle here. All the gel holds all this together. All the Jello holds all the organelles in place. And right here, you can see the shaded red area that I had put here. The analogy and function, cytoplasm is like Jello because it protects and suspends the organelles. All right, go ahead and continue. So far, you've learned 2 organelles. And remember, organelles are organs of the cell, just like we have hearts and lungs and stomachs. Cells have their organs too. They're called organelles. Okay, organelle. This one is called cell wall. And you can see that there is not a cell wall in animal cells. There is a cell wall in plant cells, and this is going to be the outside barrier. It's stronger. It protects the plant. Remember, plants do not have a skeletal system. So it also uses water in between the cell wall and the cell membrane. It pumps the water in It almost looks like a moat, so it pumps it in there really nice and full so that the plant gets stiff and stands up. So when you water plants, they usually are standing up, and if you forget to water your plants, this part will evaporate and your plants will no longer have the ability to stand up and they will fall down. So this cell wall plays an important part of keeping plants standing. The reason that you don't see this in the animal cell is humans have skeletons, and animals have skeletons to support their bodies to stand up. Plants don't, so they have to use this cell wall, the water they pump in between it, to the cell membrane. So they're inside the cell membrane, outside the cell wall. Other pictures of this organelle, again, you're not going to see it in animal cells, and it is going to be the second barrier of the picture of the cell that we have here. And here's another picture of what a cell wall would look like. And here's another animal cell, kind of squarish and green. All right, the analogy and function is a cell wall is like a wall of a dam because it can hold water. So here you can imagine this being the cell wall and this part being the cell membrane, and then it pumps water in between it so that it can stand up. Okay, going on to our next organelle, which is the nucleus. In the nucleus, both animal cells and plant cells have nucleus. Nucleus are generally not in the middle, but a lot of times we see pictures with them in the middle. The nucleus can be in the bottom, could be anywhere in the cell. Remember, the cytoplasm is just a jelly, and these organelles still get to move around, but not as fast as they would if the gel was not inside them. So the nucleus could be here today, could be up here tomorrow. And the nucleus is the site of our DNA, and anything that has DNA can reproduce. So having seen a nucleus in any of the sides will prove to you that it is a living organism, because DNA is inside the nucleus and it's going to be capable of reproducing. Other pictures of this organelle, that would be our nucleus. This one right here would be our nucleus, and that one right there would be our nucleus. An analogy and function, the nucleus is like a brain because it controls everything within the organism. Just like if something's hot, you move your hand back. A cell's nucleus can also react to its environment. When you're hungry and you need to eat, your brain does that. The same thing in the nucleus. Nucleus will tell the cell to eat, when to get rid of waste, when to store water, and things like that. So always use an analogy of a brain or something in control, like a principal, or maybe like a city hall, something that's in charge of everything. All right, so let's go ahead and go to our next organelle, which is the vacuole. And vacuoles are located in both animal cells and plant cells. You can have one or more vacuoles, and their function is to hold water, food, or waste. So if it's holding all three, you're probably going to see three or more. If it's just holding one, it may just be water. Animal cells and plant cells both use this to store those. One big difference between animal cells and plant cells that we already talked about is plant cell vacuoles seem to be larger. So if you see a vacuole that's taking up half of the cell or almost the whole cell, you know that is going to be the vacuole, not the nucleus. The vacuoles are always the largest thing in the plant cell, largest organelle. Other ways you might see pictures of this organelle is kind of represented kind of squarish. Like I said, they can have many different, a number of vacuoles. This one has 3, this one has 5, and this one has 6 vacuoles. So it is not impossible to have many. You can have many, so don't freak out if you see more than one. A cutout of a plant cell would kind of look like this. It's like somebody had cut a little piece of cake out here, and you would see half of the vacuole, because remember, that's the largest thing that's there, and that's probably going to be the nucleus right here, right? So on this picture right here, we have another drawing. The largest organelle in here is going to be your vacuole. And you don't have to write all these little things that are on here, but just so you get used to what they look like, different ways they might look. An analogy and function of the vacuole is like a silo tower because they can store food, water, or waste. Most of these towers that we have in our neighborhoods hold water, but if you go out in the rural areas, they hold grain, they hold seed, food in them instead, and they may even hold waste. Okay, continuing to our next organelle, which is the mitochondria. It's always fun to say mitochondria, so you can say it with me, mitochondria. And the mitochondria is the organelle that provides all the energy for the cell and for the organism. So all your energy comes from this little organelle inside all your cells. And plants, their energy also comes from this organelle, mitochondria, to use energy to support their lives, to grow flowers, to grow roots, to bear fruit. All that requires energy. And you're going to notice, and we've already mentioned this, animal cells have more mitochondria than plant cells do. And the reason for that is plants have a backup plan for getting energy. They can get energy from the sun, and we're going to talk about that in just a little bit and how they do that. Other pictures of this organelle, they could look like this. And they could look like this, kind of like a lazy river. Or they could look like this. It just depends who's drawing them. They could all look kind of different. An analogy and function of mitochondria, it is like a power plant because it produces electric energy. And just like your toys require batteries to operate, your body requires electricity to operate as well. And that's all being created by the mitochondria in your cells. Remember, you have 3 trillion cells in your body. And many more than that in mitochondria. One easy way to remember mitochondria is by saying mighty mitochondria. Why is it mighty? It's got a lot of power. It's got a lot of energy. Mighty mitochondria. Okay, let us continue to chloroplasts. And chloroplast is not, you're not going to find that in an animal cell, so it's crossed out, but you will find it in a plant cell. And chloroplasts basically look like green jelly beans, and these have been cut, sliced open so you can see what's inside them. And there are usually these stack of, almost look like stack of green little quarters inside, and these are called chlorophyll. That's what makes plants green, the stuff inside. But the chloroplast is the whole organelle here. And they're responsible for producing sugar. And then we're going to show you how that works later on as well too. Other pictures of this organelle. Remember, animal cells don't have them. Those quarters could look like that in the middle. Or you can get a picture like this. What do they look like in real life? Like this. Now, the more powerful microscope that you have, that you can begin to see all the detail that you see here. These are also chloroplasts, excuse me. In a plant cell, you can see the chloroplasts are going to be a lot more chloroplasts organelles than any other type of organelle. And the reason for this is since they don't use mitochondria for a lot of their energy, they have to rely on chloroplasts for their energy production. An analogy and function of chloroplasts is like a jelly bean because it produces sugar. Glucose is the science word for sugar. An analogy and function is chloroplast is like a jelly bean because it produces a sugar flavor. So I just kind of threw that word flavor in to make this sentence make sense. But what you do need to know that it produces glucose. We will not be using the word sugar in science very much, so get used to calling sugar glucose in the science class. All right, well, that concludes the organelles that you need to know for the exam. And you will see some pictures of these, and you will be copying them into your journal. Hope this helps you remember what they look like. And later on during the week, we are going to see some different pictures of these organelles and see if you can identify them. All right, well, that's all for now, and see you in the next lesson.